Hey there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug Season 2 Retrospective review, where I go through old episodes of Miraculous I never got around to making a video on and give my thoughts. Today we're diving into the final episode of Season 2 before the two-part finale, entitled Sandboy. To be perfectly honest with you, I forgot this episode existed. I can recognize clips and such, but it just wasn't something I immediately think of when I think Season 2. That being said, when I read the name, it's like these flashbacks started happening. Am I correct in remembering that people were insanely fixated on this akumatized villain? They've wanted him to return numerous times? I don't even know why. Then again, I've just admitted to barely remembering the episode, so maybe my mind will change on that once we get stuck into things. I suppose there's nothing else for it but to get started. We begin the episode with something I definitely wasn't expecting. Marinette reacting to Cat Noir memes. Why hasn't this been talked about more? I honestly can't currently think of a scene that feels more realistic to life than this. If there were teenage superheroes running around saving civilians, you best believe there would be all sorts of content made about them. We already knew this, of course, but memes? Why hadn't I thought about it before? What's even more relatable though, is said superheroes anonymously enjoying that type of content. It's even a pretty good underrated moment of Marinette having an interesting Cat Noir. These memes would definitely be funniest of all to her, considering she's the one who knows him best. It's just so wholesome and hilarious at the same time. Unfortunately, Tiki isn't joining in on the fun, and so Marinette asks her what's wrong. This is where we get a whole bunch of lore about the Kwamis. Apparently tonight is Nuru's 3,500th cycle, which is equivalent to his birthday. Except Kwami cycles aren't the same as human birthdays, as they only happen every several hundred human years. I do wish they'd worded this better though. Why couldn't they just say thousands of years? Hundreds does not imply depth the way that the lore needs for these Kwamis to have existed for as long as they have. I know she starts off saying it's his 35th, 100th birthday, but why not say 3,500 and explain how their birthdays are thousands of years apart? I mean, they can't really be 900 years apart, which is the minimum until you reach 1,000, as that would mean that Nuru has only been born just over 3 million years ago, and that's not nearly long enough considering Plagg wiped out the dinosaurs. It just messed with my head, and so I think it could have been explained a bit better. Anyway, it's not particularly important. The only relevance is the fact that during this time, Kwamis can more easily communicate with each other, but even that seems counterintuitive. According to Tiki, all the other Kwamis have to be together in the miracle box to perform some ritual to contact Nuru, but wouldn't that largely be useless if instead the Kwamis could all go visit the other one in a non-kidnap scenario? If the whole idea is that they are able to communicate with the birthday Kwami, then shouldn't they be able to do so separately whilst performing whatever tradition rather than everybody who isn't the birthday Kwami congregating and having a party without the actual one they're supposed to celebrate with? Or was this whole system invented on the off chance that this happened to one of them, and so they had a very small window of one day every few thousand years to try to get them back, and everybody else had to be free for this to work? It's just a lot of hoops to jump through, you know? All of this information's dumped on Marinette fairly quickly, which Tiki explains is due to the fact that Master Fu wants them available immediately in case there's an akumatization. Look, I get the man has trauma around Feast, which isn't yet established in the story, but Plagg's plan makes a hell of a lot of sense. Having a lookout's a great idea, and if it's a significant enough moment for them to be able to find where the Butterfly Miraculous is and end it, shouldn't that take priority? It just feels insanely conservative. He could have even invited Marinette and Adrian to his house, in disguise obviously, so if there were anything untoward happening in the city, they could immediately transform. Come on Master Fu, lift your game. Just quickly, how did Tiki, Plagg and Waze even come up with this idea? When do you think they met up? Are they leaving their holders more often than they let on? If they had enough time to all come together and come up with this idea without anybody noticing, including Fu, then surely they'd be able to meet up and throw a little summoning circle birthday party for their butterfly friend. So Marinette gives her blessing and Tiki leaves. We move over to Adrian's house where he's up late doing homework and Plagg is waiting for his opportunity to leave. Unlike with Tiki where she feels guilty and she had her insecurities, Plagg thinks it's best to fool Adrian and made an entire sock puppet replica of himself thinking he wouldn't be able to tell. When did he do this? How's he so handy? This feels like a whole separate side of himself that he's kept hidden away. Now I need a crafting show hosted by Plagg. Then just downstairs, Nuru tries to take his chance and see his friends on his birthday, but Gabe refuses. He already has this invisible barrier set up where Nuru can't get more than a few steps away from him, and then he decides to temporarily remove his ability to speak, only to restore it and act like he's not that cruel. The rage that welled within me watching this scene, I cannot tell you. I felt so angry for Nuru. This poor little guy. How is he possibly in a worse position now? It's just not fair. I do appreciate this scene though, because it gives some context as to how difficult it is for Nuru to get away. It's only something I just started thinking of now to tell you the truth, but it makes sense. I started thinking, why doesn't he just leave when he's asleep, but he presumably has this barrier around him at all times. Poor little guy. I hope eventually he gets a new owner, although I do wonder how the show would be if they didn't have a villain from the Miracle Box. To be honest though, I'm sure the possibilities are endless. If Time Tag is anything to go off, they are not catching Lila for a very long time, which means Nuru has a long slog ahead of him. Gabriel's miraculous then begins to glow, which I thought was interesting. I don't think we've seen this any other time, have we? I wonder how that works. Seeing as Nuru has to do what his master Master tells him, I presume the Miraculous becomes aware of its owner's intentions and then will alert them if there's an opportunity for them to achieve their goal. We know the Butterfly Miraculous isn't inherently evil, so I wouldn't assume it just alerts every owner when somebody's having a particularly bad day. It must just do that for Gabe and maybe Lila now. If we were searching for a hero, I suppose it would alert the holder when somebody has done something rather selfless or good. It would be a great feature for all of them, honestly. Why doesn't the Ladybug or the Cat Miraculous alert their holders when somebody's in trouble and they need to save them? Maybe because they're not adults yet and they still have their timer? Even now though, in Season 6 when they're evolved, they only get an alarm if someone's called them, or for Ladybug and Cat Noir if the others transformed like in the movie. This made me wonder about Lila too. We're well aware that Ladybug and Cat Noir had to earn the evolution to being able to use their Miraculous without a timer, and then subsequently they taught the other holders how to do the same thing. Lila though doesn't have anybody to teach her that, yet she's somehow able to unlock all these powers, and it doesn't seem as if she has a time limit either. Then again, did Felix have a time limit with the Peacock Miraculous? I've dug myself a deep hole here and I have no idea how to get out of it, so let's just move on. We see Gabriel have the most insane evil smirk imaginable, and he immediately makes his way to his lair for his latest possession. Seems especially gross when we later learn it's a small child, doesn't it? Stop grinning like that, dude, it's creepy! We then head back to Tiki, who's waiting for Plagg to turn up. They have a little bit of banter back and forth, and it's coming back to me now. I'm remembering that this is where the shipping for Tiki and Plagg began, only for it to be abruptly halted in a future episode, where Tiki said Kwamis can't fall in love. I also recall that fans began wondering as to whether the Kwami had any effect on their holder, considering the dynamic between Tiki and Plagg was eerily similar to their holders. We later learned, however, that this was just completely coincidental. I do love Plagg here though. He's just needlessly edgy for no reason. When Tiki tells them that instead of lying to her holder, she just told her the truth, he not only says that he should try that sometime, but then he eats his gift that he brought for the others, and blames this on her for grossing him out with the kindness which made him hungry. On the flip side though, we see Plagg get sentimental over Nuru, and once Tiki points this out, he quickly brushes her off. I wonder how much therapy this dude would have to go to get to the root of his emotional insecurity since he's existed since the dawn of time. Yikes. They arrive at Master Fu's apartment where he's sleeping, and Waze gets ready to stand guard. Man, it's all coming back to me now. I remember how hype it was seeing all the different Kwamis for the first time. What a great time in the fandom that was. Anyway, Plagg says that he brought cheese, but that he had to feed a starving kitten along the way, and everyone just believes him. Come on, guys. Surely they know Plagg well enough that he's a selfish being that would have definitely just eaten the cheese himself. They all turn on Tiki real quick when she's gluttonous for the King's Day dessert. Feels a bit unfair. Tiki offers the marker to her friends, which they all appreciate, and then they start dancing. I've got to be honest with you, considering it's Nuru's birthday, it feels particularly poor form to just start having a disco while your friend is held hostage. Shouldn't they move straight into trying to contact him? They're all aware he's missing. I also wonder how they're all born at different times. How does a Kwami even come into being? This episode raises many and more questions for me. Sass then starts up a conversation with Plagg and Tiki about how nice it was that their owners allowed them to come, and how great it was that Master Fu agreed to it. Feels like he knows, right? Then again, I saw his face completely buying Plagg's obvious lie, so maybe not. We also get the additional knowledge that the Kwamis can't say their owner's name out loud. Man, we really did get a whole lot of information from this episode, didn't we? How have I forgotten it all came from this one? To avoid Sass figuring out the truth, Plagg pulls Tiki away to join the dance. The memes just don't stop coming. We head back to Marinette's house where she's dreaming of her future with Adrian, only for some magic dust to fall on top of her, and a demented, horrifying Adrian pops up over the edge of her bed, telling her how much he's in love with Chloe. I gotta be real, this is gonna be some of the best voice acting I've heard from these characters in the entire show. Marinette's pure scream of terror, and Adrian's almost comical declaration of love for Chloe is pure genius. She wraps him up in her blanket and uses him as a step to get onto her private balcony. She didn't have to do that. She can normally just stand up in her bed and get out on her own, but no, she chose to step on the demented Adrian, and I'm all here for it. She takes a look around the city and can see people being chased by a giant spider, a car, a T-Rex, and a giraffe. One of these is not like the other. She then notices the akumatized villain who's riding a magic carpet that's billowing all of the magic nightmare dust. As she's coming to this realization, creepy Adrian once again makes his presence known. He tells her that one day he and Chloe will have a house together and they'll have a hamster named Marinette. Good lord, I forgot how funny this episode was. I love how she just shuts the door on him too. It's like he was initially scary, but now she's just done with this shit. Marinette tries to transform, but quickly realizes that Tiki isn't with her, and so she has to go to Master Fu's to transform. Fortunately, before that, we have one more scene of demented Adrian, where he claims the prettiest and smartest one of all is Chloe. I really hate how he crawls here, it's so irksome. She escapes him and leaves the house, but before we follow on her trail, we get a quick scene of Tom's worst nightmare, which is the doe coming to life and threatening to eat him. Poor Tom. Over at Adrian's house, his nightmare is being trapped in his room, room, much like Harry Potter in a Chamber of Secrets. It's unfortunate really when you think about it that his nightmare actually becomes a reality, only worse. Fortunately, we're safe from thinking about that too much with yet another glorious scene of Adrian believing that someone's turned Plagg into a sock. That was a strong meme in the fandom back in the day, I believe, and let me tell ya, it still holds up. We move on to the disco party inside the Miracle Box where the patterns on the floor click in and align. So I guess they couldn't attempt to contact Nuru until this very specific time. Well, I suppose that makes it okay then, and you can scratch my previous criticisms off the mark. Still though, it just feels like poor form. Bad taste. Sass leads the ceremony and they begin to sing, and it's not exactly pretty, I'll grant you. Sounds a bit eerie to tell you the truth, but I guess if it gets the job done. Back out in the streets of Paris, Marinette's running to Master Fu's and comes across more insane nightmares. A garbage man's being chased by some bins, a woman's being chased by a crocodile, and a jaguar's chasing a man. God, it would have been good if that was Kim. Roger's then chased by armed police guards and Marinette sees the villain again before zombie Chloe-obsessed Adrian continues to follow her. She continues onwards and we end up with the real Adrian whose gilded cage is getting smaller and smaller. Back to the Kwamis, the chanting continues, but now Plagg and Tiki are getting concerned because it's not helping them get in contact with Nuru. Sass says they need the peafowl, which I believe is the only time we've ever heard Dusu referred to as such. He remarks that they haven't seen her in such a long time. Don't you mean the exact same time that you haven't seen Nuru for? Why are they acting like the disappearances are different? They even know what happened with Master Fu, I'd presume. They all know who he is. It's just a bit odd. They're acting like she lost her invitation in the mail or something. Plagg suggests that they get Ways to help, who initially refuses because he has to stand guard, but with Plagg's persuasion, he immediately changes his mind. Some Kwami of protection? I do think it's the better choice, but it's very funny to me how quickly he flip-flopped his position. Finding Nuru means finding Hawkmoth. Why didn't I think of that before? So he goes and joins the chant with the others, and it actually starts working. Marinette arrives at Master Fu's and sneaks over to the Miracle Box, like I did as a child sneaking over to the hidden lollies while my parents were asleep. She attempts to call for Tiki, but nothing happens, and the nightmare dust falls over the apartment. Changing tack, she wakes up Master Fu, only for him to be confronted with the nightmares of very small sheets acting as ghosts of the Order of the Miraculous, blaming him for everything and saying it's his fault he lost the two Miraculouses. Poor Fu gets frightened and says it wasn't his fault and he didn't mean to, whilst Marinette tries to explain how Tiki's in there, and Fu says that they can't reach them because there's no way to communicate once they're inside. Isn't that just the place the other Kwamis live in though? Surely if you just took any one of the Miraculouses that isn't being used, the Kwami would be summoned out. Obviously, it's not the same for the Turtle, Ladybug and Cat Miraculous, as the Kwamis were already outside their jewels, and so they went in as Kwamis. So say you take the Fox Miraculous, shouldn't the Kwami come out with it, and thus you can explain what's happening to Trix and say, hi, please go get Tiki and Plagg out of there? Or are you telling me that this particular realm isn't where they always live, and they normally reside in another one or live completely solitary lives inside their jewels 99% of the time? Seems a bit redundant if they already live in a box though, doesn't it? Why not just hang out in there together? Smells of plot convenience to me. At this point in time they seem at a loss, but at least we have zombie Adrian to add a bit of humour to the mix, kicking in the door. I wonder what Master Fu thinks about all of this. The same levity doesn't remain for the real Adrian, whose cage just keeps getting smaller and smaller as he cries out for his father's help. Sorry buddy, daddy's too busy possessing small children to totally make your life better. In his lair, Gabe can't fathom as to why Ladybug or Cat Noir haven't turned up yet. We know that's because the Kwamis have convened to communicate with Nuru, but is it that unbelievable when being chased by your worst nightmare that you're probably so possessed with fear you don't have anything to transform? Isn't there a whole trope in nightmares about not being able to escape your fears and then you wake up? That doesn't matter though, I guess, because Gabe doesn't need to come to that realization for one specific reason. The chanting is working, and he's afflicted with painful visions of what's happening. It seems the Kwamis have made a connection with Hawkmoth rather than Nuru, and can't see that they're actually speaking to him instead. They initially proposed to try to find where he's hiding, but Hawkmoth had the exact same idea. He somehow takes over the communication signal, and the Kwamis all cower in fear and pain, and so instead, they cease the connection. Coming to the conclusion that since Hawkmoth had transformed, that somebody is most likely akumatized, Plagg, Tiki, and Waze all leave. Gabe, for once, has a big brain moment and actually figures out a radius of where they're located, instructing Sandboy to go find and capture them. Bro, if that was me, I'd be out there too. Why not? No one else is going to try to stop you. It's at this point I'm wondering why Master Fu doesn't immediately move after this episode. I know they're not aware that Hawkmoth knows a rough location, but I do feel as though this is something you could roughly guess. Or at the very least, it's a risk. Considering Marinette only gets more heroes to help from here, Gabe really needed to do more surveillance. I know it's kind of blamed on Marinette at the end of Season 3 for Master Fu's identity being revealed and thus she became the new Guardian, but you know what? The real fools are Master Fu and Gabe, the pair of them, smooth brains. Tiki, Plagg and Waze exit the Miracle Box and find absolute chaos. Marinette Marinette's backed into a wall by zombie Adrian, and Master Fu has ghosts chasing him around the room. Tiki and Plagg talk not too silently about how Adrian's his holder, and wondering whether this is really him. Plagg immediately knows it's not, and adorably fretting for his friend, he leaves. Tiki and Waze join Marinette and Master Fu, finally allowing Marinette to transform. Whilst that's happening, we get a really cool scene. As Plagg's returning to Adrian, Sandboy finds him and attempts to attack him. He misses and he chases Plagg into the underground where he's able to evade him and disappear through a wall, nearly killing the akumatized villain with an oncoming train. I just really like this scene because it's clever and shows real-world tactics beyond just waiting for the heroes to turn up and fight. Yes, he does this straight after, but it's obvious that in the time it's taken for him to find Plagg, it would be useless to search for the Ladybug Kwami, and choosing where you battle would be your next advantage. Let's be honest though, he's used up all his cards and there's no way he can beat Ladybug and Cat Noir in a fight, so at this point, he's already lost. Plagg arrives back at Adrian's, which allows him to transform and immediately use his one-time power before heading off to find Ladybug. Wouldn't it be better to de-transform immediately after this and give Plagg some cheese so he can recharge before going off fully ready with your powers intact? I guess he could be targeted again by the cage, because couldn't that follow him everywhere like all the other nightmares do? Or is it because it's specific to his house that maybe not? If that was the case, he could just de-transform elsewhere. I don't know. It just feels a bit risky going to fight a villain when you've already used up your one-time move. Back in the city, Cat Noir and Ladybug meet up where there's even more carnage with bears and out-of-control helicopters flying around. Of course, Cat Noir thinks this is the right moment and chooses to try flirting, only to be immediately turned down. But to be honest, I just really hated this. I don't care about her turning him down or anything, it's just the phrase, "This is no time for lullabies." It irks me. It's not creepy or anything, it's just a cringe comeback. A lullaby is a song to soothe nightmares. What he said had nothing to do with that. It's like looking back on all the times you've tried to come up with a cool and clever comeback, but instead you fall flat on your face and you lay awake at night thinking of that moment 15 years later. Now excuse me while I scream into my pillow. Ladybug points out he's traveling on a pillow, and now I feel like an idiot because I've been thinking it's a magic carpet this whole time. They attack Sandboy only to miss twice, and then for him to target them relentlessly. Ladybug tried to use her lucky charm, and for the first time ever, maybe even ever again, she is hit whilst using it. Man, this villain's good. I can see now why people like him so much. I'm sorry I underestimated him. Ladybug now has a new nightmare, which is not being able to be, well, Ladybug. She's completely helpless. I do wonder why she has a new nightmare. I guess it's more whatever the person currently has been thinking of recently. So Marinette was dreaming about her future life with Adrian, which is why her first nightmare was about that. Here though, it's very important they defeat the villain, and so her new nightmare is being unable to do that. Pretty cool, I think. She's about to fall off the roof, only for Cat Noir to finally jump in and save her, somehow managing to catch her crazy fast. I mean, he was over on the other side of the roof as she began falling. What do you mean he launched himself to the other side and caught her before she fell that short distance? Obviously, she could still get seriously hurt by that fall, but it's shorter than the distance he would have had to travel to save her. It makes no sense. Then he puts them down, only for Sandboy to target him too. Ladybug realizes that his nightmare isn't losing his powers, but is instead having Ladybug hate him and never love him. Honestly loved her reaction for this. No feeling sorry for him or anything, just wow. You have weird dreams too! He even apologizes for this, but it's almost cut off, which is weird. I suppose that adds to the reality of the situation, but it definitely felt like an editing mishap. The angry Ladybug lucky charms and he immediately tries to kill them. Cat Noir gets out of the way just in time, and when the next attack gets ready, he notices Sandboy coming for them on the other side, and so he launches out of the way just in time. Jeez! My man Cat Noir's on fire today. Cat Noir carries regular Ladybug onto the roof, but he's running out of time and suggests they need to form a plan. Unfortunately, they're immediately targeted again, and so Cat Noir begins battling Angry Bug, whilst Incompetent Bug tries to find a solution. While she's doing this, we see Sandboy just gawking at the fight, doing absolutely nothing. How sad. Plot armor strikes poor Gabe once again. Why isn't he trying to get Ladybug? Initially, I thought it was unfair that her nightmare was that she can't be Ladybug, but then she's also finding the solution, only for me to remember that that's not actually part of her powers. She just does this as regular old Marinette, so it does work. I really liked how this all played out in the end. You have Ladybug pull Cat Noir back and get Angry Bug to attack her with this ginormous sword. The sword only chips off at the end, which makes far more sense than with the other battles where I've seen people hit those chimney stacks and they immediately crumble down. Ladybug chases and grabs the blade cut off, launching herself off the roof, but she can't jump properly due to the loss of her powers, and so Cat Noir comes and helps her slice open the pillow to release the Akuma. Now, I will admit I did find it slightly annoying that Ladybug was able to run and catch the blade when she was completely clumsy previously, but for the cool enough ending and mostly sticking with the consequences of the nightmare, I'll allow it. We get a glorious scream from Hawkmoth due to his defeat, and Ladybug somehow able to do Miraculous Ladybug to restore everything, even though she should technically still be affected by the nightmare sand, right? She even says after everything works again, that she can use her yo-yo now. Come on. I just let a small nitpick go and this is how the show repays me? Ladybug and Cat Noir find out the little boy who got akumatized watched a scary movie and then had a nightmare, which is how he was targeted. That's just not fair. I loved Cat Noir's little snide remark about the boys' parenting before they decide Ladybug should take him home. I have to admit, this kid is not like any of the other miraculous children. He's very sweet and adorable. I mean, look at his pajamas. I can understand more why fans want him to reappear. Can't have too much of a good thing at this stage of Miraculous though, can we? I do like that Ladybug feels insecure about whether Cat Noir views her the same way as Angry Bug behaved, which he reassures her isn't true. I do love the dynamic of season 2. Even though they're both loyal to their respective loves, there's this undercurrent with the opposite personas that's really endearing, like with the beginning of the episode where Marinette was reacting to Cat Noir memes. It's cute and well written. As if the episode couldn't get more wholesome, we have some wrap-up scenes with the holders and their Kwamis. First up, Waze, Marinette and Tiki all take responsibility and apologize to Master Fu, whilst Plagg blames it all on them. Tiki also says sorry to Marinette, feeling as though she let her down, but Marinette reassures her and tells her it's alright, and they have a little cuddle. Master Fu forgives them all and says they should talk with him about it next time. All I have to say to that though is, didn't they? I know Marinette wasn't there, but apparently they knew what Master Fu wished, so obviously he had to tell someone. Does that mean that he would have changed his mind if Marinette had come to him and was involved in the situation? Do the Kwami's opinions and wishes just not matter at all? I know it ended in disaster, but I still think it could have wound up differently. By the way, Master Fu knows they failed. Waze told him immediately once they got out of the miracle box, so he should be packing his bags right now. Hawkmoth has a reduced radius of where you live, bro. Do something about it. Adorably, Plagg secretly wipes away a tear watching Marinette and Tiki's affection, which compels him to tell Adrian how much he appreciates him and how he's the best holder he's ever had. His literal watery eyes, are you kidding me? You're telling me that in 3 seasons, but really just a few months away in story, that Marinette and Adrian are fine with giving up their Miraculouses so they can start a relationship with each other. What the hell happened here? I think I have to ignore that as season 5 weirdness, because season 2 Marinette and Adrian would never. Hell, I think season 6 Marinette and Adrian would never. Conversely, Nuru gets ranted to by Gabe telling him, hey, wasn't it great your friends called to wish you a happy birthday? Now I can exploit all of this new knowledge and lock up all your friends as well, defeating Ladybug and Cat Noir and rewriting the world. Isn't that awesome, Nuru? Ha 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 ha. Poor guy's gonna need a lot of therapy. Gabe, you disgust me. That's where we finish the episode, and I tell you what, I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you. How did I forget this? It has awesome action, a whole bunch of lore, great character dynamics. What the hell's not to love? Of course, it's got all the regular silliness in terms of making the plot work, but that's just part of the fun with Miraculous anyway. I also really enjoyed how useful Cat Noir was in this episode. I doubted him when he first transformed, but he definitely held his own. Everything was great and is definitely one of my top favourites of the entire season. Only the 2-part finale left to go now, and so with all that being said, these have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of Sandboy? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.